All right, here we go. This is for the honors level Locke reading, and then I'll show you some additional things here. So I'll take you line by line, and then I'll just rant. So it says, I easily grant that civil government is the proper remedy for the inconveniences of the state of nature, which must certainly be great where men may be judges in their own case, since it is easy to be imagined that he who was so unjust as to do to his brother an injury will scarce be so just as to condemn himself for it, right? So he's saying that we need a government because we're jerks that cannot be adult-like and be impartial when we judge against people that we know. But then he goes on to say, but I shall desire those who make this objection to remember that the absolute monarchs are but men. And if government is to be the remedy of those evils which necessarily follow from men's being judges in their own cases, and the state of nature is therefore not to be endured, I desire to know what kind of government that is, and how much better it is than the state of nature, where one man commanding a multitude has the liberty to be the judge in his own case, and may do to all his subjects whatever he pleases, without the least liberty to any one to question or control those to execute his pleasure in whatsoever he doth, which means archaic form of do, whether led by a reason, mistake, or passion, must be submitted to. Much better it is in the state of nature, wherein men are not bound to submit to the unjust will of another, and if he that judges amiss in his own or any other case, he is answerable for it to the rest of mankind. So he says, key lines here, after what I was talking about here, absolute monarchs are but men. We are nothing but men, right? So, pointing out a flaw in all of Hobbes there, if we're evil, greedy, and horrible, why would we let somebody be an absolute monarch? And why would we let this person not have to answer to anybody, right? Forbid that he possibly goes crazy and starts doing whatever he or she wants, right? So then he says it would be better if we had a multitude of people that have to answer to the people. So that way, if the judge is amiss in his or her own case, he is answerable for it to the rest of mankind. Let's go. Sweet. Now, of the ends of political society and government. So, if man in the state of nature be so free, as has been said, if he be absolute lord of his own person, possessions equal to the greatest and subject to nobody, why will he part with his freedom? So, why will we leave the state of nature if we're incredibly free in it, right? Why will he give up this empire, basically roll over himself, to the dominion and control of another power? Why would you give up the right to your body and whatever you want to somebody else? To which he says is obvious, that though in the state of nature he hath have such a right, yet the enjoyment of it is very uncertain and constantly exposed to the invasion of others. So we may be able to do whatever we want to our bodies, grab whatever we want. Nobody has any control over us, and there's no rules. You aren't protected from anybody else, all right? Because we are all kings as much as he, every man his equal, and the greater part no strict observers of equity and justice, the enjoyment of the property. I don't know if that logged out for a second. I keep losing Wi-Fi. So for all being kings as much as he, every man is equal, and the greater part no strict observers of equity and justice. The enjoyment of the property he has in the state of nature is very unsafe, very unsecure. This makes him willing to quit a condition which, however free, is full of fears and continual dangers, and it is not without reason that he seeks out and is willing to join in society with others who are already united or have a mind to unite for the mutual preservation of their lives, liberties, and estates, which I call by the general name property, right? So he says that despite us losing control, right, of our bodies, it's because we basically have nothing guaranteed. It's why we still lock our doors at night, right? So he's saying is that we enter society because there's greater security, right? So he says that we end up uniting in this thing called commonwealths. Why isn't the mouse getting bigger? To preserve our property, to preserve ourselves, in which the state of nature is now ended. So what we do is we create law. Keep losing connections. So what we're going to do is create law by the common consent to be the standard of what is right and what is wrong, and the common measure to decide all controversies between them. For though the law of nature be plain and intelligible to all rational creatures, yet men, being biased by their interests as well as ignorant for want of study of it, are not apt to follow apt to allow of it as a law binding to them in the application of it to their particular cases. So we need to have a wide-held standard of right and wrong, because should there be a battle or a case between two individuals in the law of nature, we are going to be partial to ourselves, our friends, or what suits us best. So that's here in the second part of section 124. And then he also goes on to say that in the state of nature there wants a known and indifferent judge with authority to determine all differences according to the established law, for everyone in that state being both judge and executioner of the law of nature. Men being partial to themselves, and passion and revenge is very apt to carry them too far and with too much heat. So we need to have an indifferent judge to determine all differences according to the established law, because we are partial, we are biased, and we're more very likely to carry out revenge for ourselves or to others. All right, cool. Now, men, enter into a society, give the equality, liberty, and executive power they had in the state of nature into the hands of society, to be so far disposed of by the legislative, as the good of society shall require, yet it being only with an intention in every one the better to preserve himself, his liberty, and property. For no rational creature can be supposed to change his condition with an intention to be worse. The power of society or legislative constituted by them can never be supposed to extend further than the common good. So we're not ever going to make ourselves intentionally worse. So this idea is actually good. That's one way of kind of theorizing about it. And so we realize that we need to better ourselves in that, or secure our person, right? So we enter society for the common good, and we come up with laws for the common good. All right, but is obliged to secure every man's or everyone's property, providing against those three defects above mentioned that made the state of nature so unsafe and uneasy. And so whoever has the legislative or supreme power of any commonwealth is bound to govern by established standing laws, promulgated and known to be the people, not by extemporary decrees, by indifferent and upright judges, who are to decide controversies by those laws and deploy the force of the community at home, and only in the execution of such laws are abroad to prevent or address foreign injuries and secure the community from inroads and invasion. And all of this to be directed to no other end but the peace and safety and public good of the people, basically establishing why we need a government, right? Cool. I guess, let's see. Well, got like 2 minutes left on this one. Here he starts talking about why we need to have a legislative. And you guys should know it at this point that a legislative is a group that makes the laws, makes taxation, and to many political theorists is really the main political force, because we're putting people in power. In that the legislative is not to be a ridiculous group that is a supreme power that can ruin our lives. No, they work for us, by us, to protect us, and literally are just there to protect our life, liberty, and property, not to take away anything or become a controlling oligarchy. Cool? Now, let's see. I think we'll stop Locke there. I'll have some other ones where he talks about some of the extra stuff I put in that massive document that I made for, I don't even know why anymore. All right, cool. Thanks for listening.